Good afternoon, everyone. Very warm welcome to you all for this week's Wednesday Expert Lecture Series. On behalf of our team, School of Internal Security, Defense and Strategic Studies, would like to extend warmest greetings of the new year. And for today's lecture, the topic is Integrated Theater Command, Imperatives and Structure. To begin with, Theater Command is basically a unified command under which all the resources of the Army, the Navy, and the Air Force are pooled depending on the threat perception. The commands could be geographical, like looking at a border with a particular country, or thematic as the command for all maritime threats. Theater commands are much more than just jointmanship, technology, and strategy. It is all about speed and timing in achieving success in the battlefield. The key to winning the war is having command over technology, implementation of technology, and utilizing that technology in acting faster than the adversary. The answer to all these is a modern integrated command structure. The US started the process of theaterization in 1980s. Russia began the process in 2008, and the Chinese began that in around 2015. In recent times, we have seen India making efforts towards the very same, and to have a robust defense architecture. Russia, with the Joint Command, was able to reduce the number of stages orders passed through from 16 to 5. Lesser the number of stages, the faster the decision making. The idea of creating an integrated tri-service command India is not new. It has been recommended at various levels from after the Kargil conflict. India currently has 17 commands, Army and Air Force having 7 each. Navy has 3 commands, whereas there are 2 joint commands, that is Andaman and Nicobar Command and Strategic Force Command. The recent defense reforms in India has aimed to achieve the difficult but the vital task of creating joint commands. The CDS has been mandated to raise such commands. To understand different imperatives and structures of the integrated theater commands, we have today with us Lieutenant General Vinod Bhatia, PVSM, AVSM, SM retired. General Bhatia has retired as the DGMO of Indian Army after a distinguished career of in Army for 40 years. General Bhatia is alumni of NDA, Defense Service Staff Service, College of Defense Management, and the prestigious National Defense College. His higher command assignments include that of Mountain Brigade in North Bengal, Infantry Division on the line of control, and Operational Corps along India-China border. He has also been part of various operations such as Operation Vijay, Operation Rhino, and the famous Operation Cactus. Before I hand over the floor to General Bhatia, I would just like to point out few housekeeping points. I would request all the participants to keep their mic on mute, and we'll have a Q&A session wherein you can either type your questions in the chat box or raise your hand, and you'll be given the chance to ask the questions. Thank you so much, everyone. Sir, the floor is all yours. We can begin with it.
Thank you, Retd. Thank you, RU. Jel Mistri, I don't know whether he's online or not, but all the same, the fellow soldier and the director, thank you very much. And thank you for the introduction. Jai Hind to everyone, and wishing you all a happy new year. Happiness and success always. The brief given to me is to detail the Integrated Theater Command, the imperatives and structures in India's defense in the Indian context. We have seen others, but it's the Indian context, and Indian context is slightly different. So what I intend doing is I want to establish the need for the integrated theater commands. There's been debate in the strategic community, debate among the think tanks, the government, the armed forces, whether we really need it or we are hurrying it up, or we need to. This is not the right time in view of the COVID and China situation. So first the need and then the structures. So I've got about 35 minutes. I'll try to just give an overview of the whole thing. And then I'll be taking on the interactive session. And I always look forward to interacting with you because there's a lot to learn from me. Learning is a lifetime experience. So today, India is a risen, responsible, resurgent, resilient nation. We are a regional power, and we are a global leader. Let's understand what we are today. What is India? We are the largest democracy. We are the second largest human resource, the population in the world. Some may call it a disaster, a demographic disaster, or some demographic dividend, but we are the second largest population in the world. We also the third largest economy in PPP terms at $8.6 trillion US dollars. We are the fourth largest armed forces. We are the fifth largest exclusive economic zone. We are the sixth largest natural resources in the world. We are the seventh largest real estate. We are the one of the 8 nations which is a nuclear armed nation, which is declared, other than Israel and North Korea, which possibly are nuclear armed, but they're not declared nuclear armed state, which we are, one of the 8 nations. So that is where we are. But in spite of having everything in this thing, we are really not a great power in the world as we should be. We don't have the rightful place in the Committee of Nations. We don't sit on the high table in the United Nations. We are not part of the elite clubs totally. We are part of many multilateral organizations, and we are getting there, but really not there. So I will like to say as to why we are not there, and look at the national aim and what we need to do to get there. When we talk of essential elements of national power, we talk of DIME +2, that is the diplomatic, informational, military, economic, and +2, I say always, is more important, is the political and cultural part. Seeing that, let's just define a national aim. I'm sure you must have already seen that, but let me give you my viewpoint of our national aim. Our national aim is to transform India to a modern, prosperous, and secure nation. I say that again. Transform India to a modern, prosperous, and a secure nation. So security becomes a key factor if you want to be prosperous and to ensure the well-being of 1.38 billion people as of today. And also look at the long-term peace, stability, and economic development. Economic development is an imperative to the well-being of our people, and peace, stability is definitely is there to ensure economic development. Without peace and stability, you cannot have economic development. Though without economic development, also not peace and stability. So it's again a chicken thing. But we are looking at long-term peace, stability, and development. So where do our threats lie? Firstly, the definition of security is changing and changing very fast. Today, we've got to look at comprehensive national security, and that is where the Raksha University has come about to look at it holistically as a comprehensive national security, and not only a national security or national military security. So we have India's land borders of 1,506.2 kilometers long with 7 nations. It's not 6 nations, 7 nations. We also share a land border with Afghanistan of 106.2 kilometers. So it is 15,106.2 kilometers of land borders. Right. In that, we have the longest unresolved borders in the world with China. At 3,488 kilometer India-China border is the longest unresolved border. We also have borders with Pakistan, where Pakistan disputes our claims and occupies our territories. That is in Pakistan occupied Kashmir. So does China also. I'll come to that later. With Pakistan, we have, starting from the north, we have an actual ground position line, which is a Siachen Glacier of 126.2 kilometers, control 772.2 kilometers, and then we have the international border, and also the Jammu and J&K, what we call the international border, of about 190 kilometers. Pakistan says a working boundary, which is not right because it's an international border which is demarcated and which is defined. Right? We also share the longest land borders with Bangladesh at 4,096 kilometers. In addition, we also have land borders with Nepal, with Bhutan, with Myanmar, and like I said earlier, with Afghanistan. Right? So what is it that we want as national military objectives or the national security aim? The national security aim is to ensure security of our borders, our territorial integrity, which is an imperative, maintain a conducive internal and external environment for unhindered socio-economic development of India, enabling her to assume its rightful place in the Committee of Nations. I say that again. Enabling her to assume its rightful place in the Committee of Nations. We all talk of a global world order. We have a global world order, but we should be forming part of the global world order to make the rules, not follow the rules. Because we are a great nation and we want to achieve that greatness, and that we can only come through once we have all the elements of national power synchronized, synergized, and acting as one. So India's security concerns are: one, unresolved borders; two, we have Pakistan, which is a proxy war since 1989 December or 1990 January, as we call it. We had 4 wars in Pakistan. I'm not going to that. We have China, with which we have our unresolved borders, and China claims over 110,000 square kilometers of our territories and occupies about 38,500 kilometers of our territories already, which is our territory. And we know what has happened on the line of action control since May, June of 2020. It's been about 19 months now. And we also have a two-front security challenge. Security challenge, two-front. That is, if China has a conflict with India, Pakistan will definitely support China physically, and there'll be a conflict, two-front conflict. However, the reverse may not be true. If we have a conflict with Pakistan, China may or may not support overtly Pakistan. It has not happened in the past, and it is possible that it may not happen in the future. In any case, we've got to deny that. In our internal security situation, we have Jammu and Kashmir, which is a security well known to us. We also have the Northeast situation, but Northeast more in the law and order domain and not in the public order domain. Now, despite what has happened in the last 2 incidents there, but I think it's the law and order domain and not public order domain. And then we have the most sensitive left-wing extremism in the land. We also are looking at non-contact warfare, which is, the future wars are multi-domain, multi-dimensional, and that is where we need to study them. The non-contact warfare in the cyber domain, space domain, and the most sensitive is the information war or virtual societal warfare. Tomorrow's war will be based on a lot of platforms, and the virtual societal warfare is something we got to prepare to meet and mitigate. We also have India as a network security provider to the region. Prime Minister Modi's vision of Sagar, security and growth for in the region, has to be translated, and we also have non-traditional security challenges from COVID to nuclear accidents, incidents, you name it, to FICN, law and order domain. These are multiple in any case. It's a different subject in itself, on which I've written a paper for the people to see. So we do have all these challenges. So when we look at, our structures are based on our doctrines and our strategies. So what is our strategy? Very quickly, I'll cover it. With China, our strategy, especially what has happened in the last 2 years, we have to redo our strategy. We have definitely surprised China with a resolute response along the line of actual control. But with China, we always had a strategy of dissuasive deterrence. Dissuasive has really not with China. We need to know China's aggressive behavior. China has been, and we have a war prevention strategy against China. Basically, deterrence means war prevention. It is not in China's interest to fight a war with India, and neither India's interest to war with China, but there's always a chance of spiral, and China respects strength. So we've got to deal with China from a position of relative strength. If we do not do that, China will keep doing what it is doing, as part of military coalition. That is part of its strategy, and it has already demonstrated that against most of the nations, including India, on the line of actual control. So what we have with China is a 3D strategy. Defend the line of actual control, dominate the Indian Ocean region of the seas, which is China's strategic concern, strategic vulnerability, and deter China's aggressive behavior by bind to balance with other nations. Because China has got a differential of comprehensive national power, 1:5.15. So when we see that, it is okay to talk on the TV screens and other things that we can take on China, but the fact remains that it is a country which has got 5.5 times our comprehensive national power. But that doesn't mean that we are weak. We are not weak. I'm not saying that. But we have to understand the realities of the world equations. It is okay to say US or the Quad, Australia or Japan, but every nation look at its own interests. And when we do that, we have to ensure that we are today the balancing power. But we also have to balance our interests. No one shares the boundaries with China other than us. Japan also does that, but we are the land border neighbors also with China. As far as Pakistan is concerned, Pakistan wages a proxy war, a low-cost, high-effect proxy war, and wage that impunity for the last maybe 4 decades now. Started on 13th of December 1998. If you were to give a start point, the day Mufti Mayer's daughter Rubia Saeed was released in exchange of 4 terrorists on 13th December, 7:30 in the evening. There were 70,000 people in the streets of Srinagar celebrating. So that is the commencement of the proxy war and the Jammu and Kashmir situation. What are we looking from Pakistan? Pakistan, we have a war waging strategy. With China, we have a war prevention strategy. With Pakistan, we have a war waging strategy. Why do we have a war waging strategy? Is to deter Pakistan from, not deter Pakistan, but change Pakistan's behavior from waging its proxy war. And this low-cost, high-effect war has to become a high-cost, low-effect war. And it has started off with the surgical strikes, which with the present government, which is a strategic decision, and creating, we have lost our strategic patience, and we went in for the surgical strikes and followed by the precision air strikes in Jabarton. So with Pakistan, what we look at is a 3P strategy: a proactive strategy, a preemptive strategy, and a punitive strategy. Right? Proactive strategy is to increase the cost in Pakistan. A preemptive strategy is to ensure our security, and a punitive strategy is to raise the cost and deter Pakistan and change its behavior from carrying out terrorist attacks on our territory with impunity. Given these 2 strategies now, let us look at what are the armed forces about. Like I said, we are the 4th largest armed forces in the world. We are the 2nd largest army and the largest voluntary army. Imagine, Chinese army is a conscript army, 40% conscripts, turning over in 2 years. In our case, we are the largest voluntary army in the world. We are the 4th largest navy, a blue water navy, and the 4th largest air force. However, having proved our effectiveness in all domains, whether it is external, ensuring territorial integrity, on the line of actual control, on the line of control, in intervention operations like Maldives, where I was a part of the operations of Maldives, or Sri Lanka, in HADR, law and order domain, aid to civil authority, you name it, we have been very effective. Despite all this, today, the Indian armed forces are not a military power. We are a military force, right? So we have to transform Indian military from a military force to a military power. If we do that, our other structures, other essential elements of national power are in the right place. Politically, we are there. If you look at our political leadership, the Indian political leader, Mr. Modi, is the most sought after. We have the visits of all the heads of states. They want to come to India, all of them. Whether it's the US president, the Russian president, the Chinese president for that matter. So all of them, even the UAE, the West Asia, Southeast Asia, we had 10 heads of state who attended with chief guest for our Republic Day parade. Okay, it's never happened earlier. So what we are looking at is, politically we are there, diplomatically we are there, information-wise we have a good information setup. Culturally, we are one of the oldest civilization with cultural linkages, and with the best of militaries, the combat-hardened, battle-hardened, combat-rich military, we're still not a military power. So what are the detractors of military power? 4 detractors, very, very briefly. I'm not going to go into the details. 65% of our military hardware is ex-imports, right? We have started off now, what Atmanirbharta will talk about, the self-reliant defense manufacturing. We are correcting it. Too little, too late, but things are set in motion. The second thing is the higher defense organization. Right? This also, after decades of not taking decisions, we have had the higher defense organization set right with the appointment of the Chief of Defense Staff and the office of the DMA. right? Department of Military Affairs. So this also where the civil military fusion has taken place. So there is some things which have taken place. The third thing is optimization of the budget. I'm not saying the budget should be 3% or so and so percent of the GDP. We got competing priorities at the national level. We have to look after a number of other issues, but optimal utilization of the budget is a major concern. We had the Shaketka committee. I'm sure General Shaketka would have come and spoken to you. I was part of the Shaketka committee. Although it was done in the Center for Joint War Office, Studies, where I was the director. And we have given 218 recommendations in the Shaketka committee to the government. Most of this have been acted upon. Some are in the motion and to be acted upon. But we were looking at enhancing combat effectiveness by optimizing our expenditure. So that was the aim, and that is the third weakness. And the fourth and the major weakness I will talk about is the integration. I'm not saying that we are not joint. We have proved our jointness. 1971 war is a classic example of joint operations. Right? We also did the Maldives operation, classic example of joint operation, or Sri Lanka also. But the fact remains, we have never optimized our armed forces, 1962 or 1965, the other things, and we have not been actually fully. There's a difference between integration and, like I said, jointness and integration are slightly different. We are looking at integrated structures. General Bipin Rawat was given this task, and we were very hopeful that the first integrated theatre command would have been set up in September of 2020. It got delayed for whatever reasons, and unfortunately, we had this accident where we lost a great soldier. However, we got to carry the legacy forward. General Rawat was convinced, and I had on a number of occasions, we had discussed the integration process and the procedures and the structures, the contours, how it should be there. And I'm sure this will be carried forward, because this is something which has been laid down by no one else other than the Prime Minister. And I quote the Prime Minister, and just let me read this to you. The Prime Minister, speaking from 15th of August 2019, what he said was, India should not have fragmented approach, and our entire military power will have to work in unison and move forward. All the three services should have simultaneously move at the same pace. There are several reasons to seek integration of air defense organizations and other our commands. We've got 17 commands, and integrated commands is the way forward, right? So what are we looking at? What are the integrated commands we're looking at? I put it that we have to look at a mix of geographical and theme-based commands. This was covered earlier. In the Indian context, we cannot follow the US model, we cannot follow the Russian model, and we cannot follow the Chinese model. We have to follow Indian model based on a threat perception, and the model has to be a capability-based and a threat-based model. It cannot be a threat-based model alone. It cannot be a capability-based model alone. It has to be a hybrid model, totally Indian in context and Indian in culture and Indian characteristic. So what should we be looking at? We got our borders, right? So let's look at the land borders. Along our western borders, we can have one single command, starting from Siachen to Sir Creek. One single command, just looking at our western neighbor, which is Pakistan. However, along the northern border, I feel that we should have two theatres. One is the Northwestern Theater, which would extend from, let's say, Karakoram, include the 1597 kilometers of our borders in eastern Ladakh, thereafter the Himachal sector of Harsil and Himachal sector, which is the Poo sector, Shivkila, coming on to Harsil, Joshimath, and going up to Taklakot, which is the tri-junction of the India, Nepal, China border, and even extending a little into Nepal. Right? So this would be the Northwestern Theatre. The second would be the Northeastern Theatre. We generally look at only Pakistan and China, but we've got to understand that we also have land borders with other nations. The Northeastern Theatre would be looking at the India-China border from Johnson Peak in Sikkim, going up to the tri-junction on the western tri-junction of India-China Bhutan, which is what we popularly now known as Doklam, which is actually Dolam and Gamuchin. And then Bhutan, India-China border in the east from the Kaming sector, going right up to Kibutu, which is the India-China-Myanmar border in the east. We also have to look at the India-Myanmar border, which is about 1641 kilometers. We have to look at the 4906 kilometers of the Bangladesh border and the 699 kilometers of Bhutan border. So we have the Northeastern Theater looking at about half of Nepal, India-China border in the east, that is 220 kilometers Sikkim and 1146 kilometers Arunachal Pradesh, India-Myanmar border, India-Bangladesh border, and India-Bhutan border. So we have to, and why I say that is because in our case, we have terrain fractured sectors. The sector is fractured with terrain. Someone who's in Ladakh and someone on the east, there's no connectivity between the two. We've got other countries and there's no connectivity. All our India-China border, unfortunately, got single access connectivity, starting from, let's say, Ladakh, we just got Zojila and Rohtang Pass. In Himachal, we only have one Indo-Tibetan road, which is called the Indo-Tibetan Highway, which goes up to U and on to Shipkila. Then we have a road to Harsil and beyond, one single road to Joshimath, which of course the Supreme Court has fortunately agreed to widen it. And similarly, in the northeast, we have a narrow Siliguri corridor, which is the costliest real estate, the most strategic value real estate for the country, which connects 5.5 crore people, 8.5 states. And this is a very narrow 24 kilometers by 16 kilometers. And after that also, we have single access to Sikkim and a few bridges over Brahmaputra. So we have to look at what we have, and then that's why we talk of two theaters. And we will combine the forces which are already there. It is not that there will be a relocation of forces, it's only reallocation of forces, right? Assets are reallocated, not relocated, because relocation costs us money and they were located well. So it's only reallocation resources we're talking about. So we have three land-based theater commands. The Western Theater Command, repeat that again, from Siachen to Sal Creek. The Northwest Theater Command from, let's say, Karakoram Pass, a little north of Karakoram Pass, right up to the India-China-Nepal border. And then we have from there onwards, right up to the India-Myanmar border, the Northeastern Theater. We also have 7,516.6 kilometers of our coastal line. And the coastal defense and the power projection would come under the Maritime Command or the Peninsular Command, whatever you want to call it. Names are not material. And there would be all the resources presently deployed in the Eastern Naval Command, the Western Naval Command, and the Southern Naval Command, including the Coast Guard, would be integrated to form a maritime force, a maritime power, which will be able to dominate the seas and the ocean, which is very important to us. The domination of the oceans is very important. We have over 220 warships in the Indian Ocean at any one time. Most of it the Americans and the Chinese there. And this is our ocean because we are the peninsular country. We dominate the ocean. We've got 7 choke points and need to dominate the choke points. And that is where China's vulnerability is. There's a strategic vulnerability. That's where China's strategic concerns lie. And if we want to deter China, this is the pressure points which we need to put on China with the ability and the capability to choke the 7 choke points. Right? So we have the Maritime or the Peninsular Command. And the 5th is the Aerospace Command. And that was to the first to start, which I thought was the easier to do because Air Force by its very nature has got strategic flexibility, it's got operational flexibility. It doesn't have to do anything, just the command control structures could have been changed and the Aerospace Command could have come up. But of course, like I really said, we need to first understand the need, the imperative, and then we need to understand that this needs to be done. There'll always be resistance to change. There's no doubt about it. Resistance change is normal. We are very comfortable, and the military is world over. It's not only the Indian military. World over, we always fight the. Okay, I'm still okay with time. World over, we always fight the last wars. All our structure based on last wars. So what we need is an Aerospace Command, and I will go a little into detail of the Aerospace Command. So we look at 5 theater command, integrated theaters, but we also have to look at certain joint commands. And what are the joint commands? The Cyber Command is a joint command. Right now, we've got a Defense Cyber Agency, which is not good enough. In 2019, we had 4.5 lakh cyber attacks. In 2020, we had 11.5 lakh cyber attacks, 300% increase. I do not know about 2021 figures, they still not come out. So we need a joint cyber command. We also need a joint space command. We need a joint special operations command, and I being a paratrooper, we are very vehemently, I must say, for it, because we need a special. Tomorrow's operations are a lot of special operations have to come, and they're very cost effective. Joint special operations command. We again we put it in a division, special operations division. Then we need a joint training command and a joint logistics command, which puts in the logistics together for this thing. So we're looking at 5 commands and we're looking at 5 theaters, right? And we should not bother too much about if there's an increase, let it be. Now, what happens today? The defense preparedness is with the Chief of Defense Staff, and the operational preparedness, operational readiness with the chiefs of the services, the 3 services. Now, the transition has to take place when the integrated theater commands come from the defense preparedness going to the 3 service chiefs, and the operational readiness and the operational preparedness being taken over by the Chief of Defense Staff. I think that transition has to be managed. That transition management is very important, and that is where the resistance is presently there. Most of the time I get asked, what will the service chiefs do? Well, service chiefs are role to play. They will do defense preparedness. Defense preparedness is exceedingly important. Defense preparedness, I think, is more important. Operational preparedness can still be done, but defense preparedness is long term. It needs your manpower. It needs your material, and without manpower, material, and organizations, you cannot really fight wars. So it is and training, of course. So that has to come under the defense preparedness part. Will go to the chief. So the transition has to be managed, right? So having done that, we also need to ensure that the militaries are hierarchical, very hierarchical, and we need to have the right hierarchy for that. We need 4 stars heading the theater commands, and with 3 component commanders in each of the theaters. Each component commander would then look after the Air Force, Army, and Navy. So there's again talk: how will an Air Force, theater commander handle the Northern Theater? Why can't he handle Northern Theater? He's looking at the strategic level. He has got component commanders. He's got, there's a chain of command. There is specialization. He has to look at the strategic. The strategic thought is with him. The strategic intent is with him. The strategic operations are with him. So it has to integrate at the national level, the whole of nation approach. So we should not look at a the specialization of a particular leader. He's a military leader in his own right, and we had many examples where the military leaders, like even let's take the case of the Army, because I'm more familiar with the Army. Not that I'm a paratrooper, so I have done joint ops with. I've held all the joint appointments with the Air Force, not as the Navy though. And as the DGMO, the Director of General Military Operations, I used to often call my counterparts from the Army and the Air Force, come, let's meet, and we used to meet. And I was a little senior to them. Fortunately, I should tell them, look, you are the DG Air Operation, Director General Air Operations. You are the Director General Naval Operations. I'm the Director General Military Operations, not Army Operations. So there's a difference. So let's coordinate that. So I should take them along, and we do that. It's not that not done, but we do that. So we should look at 4 stars heading the theaters and 4 stars heading the 3 services also, and the component commanders of each of the service with each of the theaters, and then they will thereafter control, deploy, and employ the resources as desired by the theater commander. And we should also understand that the theater resources are not someone's dad's property. They can be relocated. The strategic balancing can take place, and this strategic balancing is an imperative. It has been done earlier also. And I recollect, even with, let's take the example of China, we had got the sanction for what we loosely term the mountain strike, but actually it's attrition forces. On 17th of July 2013, we got the CCS sanction, as the DGMO really worked at it without blowing more trumpet. And we got the sanction for 90,274 men. Try getting one single man from the government of India, it's nearly impossible. But we got the sanction for 90,274 men at a cost of 6,076.16 crores. I still remember the figures very well, having given so many presentations. And this over a period of 8 years. Had we got the attrition forces through at that point of time, we would have been fully prepared. Not that we didn't do well, we done well. We were fully prepared to deter China, right, along the line of actual control. But what has happened, because most of the strategic think tanks are जनरल साहब लड़ाई तो होनी नहीं है कभी भी, तो क्या फायदा बताओ? लड़ाई नहीं होगी, मानता हूं मैं, लड़ाई नहीं होगी. लड़ाई तब नहीं होगी when you are prepared for war. If you're not prepared for war, you're inviting war. Okay, so your defense preparedness is what deters war. We are not here to fight wars. It is different. But why should I fight a war? We as a nation, we want peace, we want security, we want territorial integrity. I'm not here to fight wars. War is the last, it's not an option. War is the last resort. But if you're not prepared for war, you're inviting wars. And that was my viewpoint always. And fortunately, let me also say China has done us a favor by doing what it has done. We've given a push to infrastructure. And Pakistan did us a favor in 1999 by Kargil. We started the theaterization process, joint process after Kargil, the Kargil Review Committee and the group of ministers reported in 2002. So I think I have taken a lot of time. Just give me another 2 minutes. I just would like to give out certain reasons for the, there's been a lot of talk of the Aerospace Command, why it should not be there. So I will just give a few reasons why we need an Aerospace Command. One, what are the tasks of the Aerospace Command? Establish, integrate aerospace defense theater with the responsibility of providing air defense cover to the entire airspace covering Indian landmass, island territories, including the territorial waters. This will extinguish the function of air defense now performed by existing IAF operational commands. This is a few that. Two, Air Headquarters will carry out operational administrative control of the Aerospace Defense Theater. 3. Aerospace Defense Theater will also act to protect the nation from the ballistic cruise missiles. Now, ballistic cruise missiles is a real threat, and we have to have one ballistic missile defense. It cannot be separate things. 4. Integrate the surveillance weapon resources, all the three services, including those of ballistic missile defense. We got different, the Navy has got different, the Army has got different resources, and the Air Force got different resources. We have the same missiles, the Apache missiles with the Army and the Air Force and the Navy. And also the BrahMos, we got to make sure that we have one. The Aerospace Defense Theater will exercise the operational control of the air defense resources assigned to it by the individual services. The administrative maintenance of these will continue to remain with the parent service. To maintain clarity in operations, the ballistic and cruise missile threats would be detected and utilized by the operational staff of ADCCC and ADDC, which would essentially remain involved in handling conventional manned and unmanned airborne threats. We have to look at unmanned airborne threats. When we look at aerospace, it's the UAVs, the unmanned aerial vehicles, and the ballistic missiles and the cruise missiles, which have to be factored in. It is not only the fighter aircraft. Things are changing very rapidly. Unmanned flights are there, and we have the UAV threats also. The early warning of ballistic cruise missiles would be obtained from the AD surveillance systems. And this is integrated. You cannot have different layers, and decision-making, the decision loop has to be shortened. The order loop has to be very, very short, because it takes a few minutes for a cruise missile from launch to hitting the target, right? So if we do not react in that few minutes, I think we have lost the battle. Indian Air Force indigenous C4I systems, which are to integrate into the IACC systems. So this integration has to take place. Most fighter aircraft held by the Indian Air Force are multi-role type now. They're not air defense and not for fighter aircraft. They are multi-role aircraft. And apart from air defense, the aircraft necessarily employed for other operational roles such as ground attack and all. So that can be allocated to the various commands. And the existing requirement establishing conventional joint organizations, specifically AD functions within the TBA, has to be done with it. We got to have the Air Force looking after everything. We don't have too many things. I think I'll end out here. I have overshot a little by a few minutes. So I'm open to any suggestions, comments, questions, interactions.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for that very comprehensive, detailed presentation about the topic. I think you have mentioned a lot of important points, and just to highlight a few from my side, the factor that we should be dealing with China with a 3D strategy, and Pakistan with 3P strategy, like, caught my attention. And of course, the very important point you mentioned about theater commands being handled by 4-star general. I think that would solve a lot of issues regarding the leadership of these theater commands. Now I think we'll open to questions, as sir said, and we would request you to either raise your hand or type your questions in the chat box, and we're looking forward to the questions. Thank you. Anyone with questions or any remark? You can either type it or you can just raise your hand.
Hello. Good evening, sir.
Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
Am I audible?
Absolutely, sir.
Sir, I heard that this news and all that India is means facing two-front war. Two-front war means from two ways, China and with this theater command, sir. Can you throw some light on this?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Sanjay Dixit. Yeah, when we talk about security challenges, India in particular faces two adversarial nations, right? I've deliberately used the word adversarial nation because we should not be making enemies out of adversaries. There's a difference between the two. So we have Pakistan, which is a mischievous nation, which has never reconciled to a dominant Indian position, and which complete survival of Pakistan based on an anti-India, I would say, rhetoric and identity crisis, right? And in Pakistan, Pakistani army drives the policies, especially the India policy, and Pakistan army's of relevance, that is economic relevance, its domestic relevance, its political relevance, comes from an anti-India stance. Okay. After the 1971 war, they thought that they understood that they cannot defeat India in a conventional war. And in the 80s, Ziaul Haq started what we call the proxy war. And he laid the foundation for the proxy war in 89 onwards, 90 onwards. We faced proxy war, and Pakistan has succeeded in waging the proxy war. So Pakistan always will look for a chance to, as they say, even in the prayers, that we have to avenge the 1971 defeat, right? That is, even the Pakistan Military Academy, when the officers are commissioned, they take an oath. When we take an oath on the Constitution of India, they take in the oath it is included that they will seek revenge for the 1971 war. Okay, so that is their psyche. So Pakistan will always be willing to join war, but Pakistan also knows that Pakistan cannot fight India alone, right? India is about, again, 5 times stronger than Pakistan. What it will do is it will also take the help. It's a proxy of China. And Pakistan's value to China, strategic value to China, has already enhanced over the years, and especially with the US pulling out and with the Gwadar Agreement. The Gwadar Agreement was signed by Xi Jinping within 24 hours of taking over as the president of China. He took over the president of China on, I think, 13th or 14th of March 2013. And within 24 hours, he signed the Gwadar Agreement, giving control of Gwadar 40 years to China. And then the CPEC is central to the China dream. So we've got to understand the equations between China and Pakistan. So if we were to go to war with China, or China was to go to war with India, India would not like to go to war in any case. We're a peace-loving nation. But then we have certain red lines. That's the time when we have to face a two-front war. So all our preparations have to be for a two-front war, as we have two adversarial relations with China and Pakistan. So our capabilities, our force levels, our deployment, our strategic deployment, our operational philosophies, our military strategy are based on a two-front war. That means that we have to hold one front and defeat the second front. There are various methods of doing. I'd not like to go into the details, but a capability-based, when I said capability-based, threat-based mix of the two, so that is when I say threat-based and capability-based is to defeat, to meet and mitigate the two-front challenge posed by China and Pakistan. If China attacks India, definitely Pakistan will attack India. But if Pakistan does go to war with India, China may or may not go to war with India.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. We have a question by Molly Tiwari, a student at our school and university. He says, what implication does China's integrated command hold for India, and how can we deal with them?
Yeah, China has started the process in about 2015, and they were to complete by 2020. What China is looking at is challenge the US for they're looking at challenging the US for a bipolar world order. Right? China wants a bipolar world order. It doesn't want a unipolar world order. Whereas India wants a multipolar world order, where India is a major player, a global leader, and many multilateral engagements. So China, because the same thing we are doing, integrated theater command. What is the need of integrated theater commands? We need to be, we are a world. If you want to be a world leader, you got to have the military capability to protect and project your national interests. Okay, I say that again. You have to have the military capability to project and protect your national interests and assets. Whether the assets are in the, in West Asia, in Southeast Asia, in a vague, island of Fiji or Mauritius or wherever it is. So you got to protect your assets also and interests also. Whether we got the ONGC Videsh has got drilling interests in Vietnam, in the South China Sea next to Vietnam. So that is where the military power comes in. And China also went into a reform process or transformation process where the PLA has been transformed and they have gone for integrated theater commands. We face the Western Theater Command, which is the largest theater command. And but let me also say, China has not done the transition too well, and we should not do the same mistakes. Our transition has to be right and proper. Where the Strategic Forces Command has, I think, reasonable transition. There is a role definition among the theater commands which is not really optimal, which I would say is missing. So we have to have the role definition. That is what I was trying to say. The role definition comes from what we want the theater commands to do. In our case, the role definition is in particular very clear. That is where the strategies were defined. That's why I went in for the strategy, simple terms. I could have given a grand strategy, but no, a 3D and a 3-piece strategy. It serves our purpose at a level to understand what we really want in simple words. So otherwise, the military papers written by the Americans and the Chinese and even the Indians are far too long and lengthy to read and understand for a soldier like me, especially. Now, so when we look at the Western Theater Command, we have the ability to stand up to the Western Theater Command, right? But our abilities are limited in, tomorrow's war, like I said, multi-dimensional, multi-domain. Are we really prepared for it? I'm not too sure. I'm not too certain. Let's take recent examples of information war. China follows has a philosophy of a 3 warfare strategy. The 3 warfare being psychological operations, public opinion, and legal warfare. And if you look at this video which has been released on the New Year's Eve of Chinese soldiers unfurling a flag, it was meant for the consumption of the Indian public that, look, we are there at Galwan. They are not there. That is not Galwan, definitely not. You don't, I have enough service in altitude, and some of you some of you belong to the mountains, I'm sure, and some of you would have trekked in the mountains, climbed the mountains. Even if you're there for 7 to 8 days, you get sunburned. Look at the soldiers in that video. Not one of them is sunburned. They're somewhere. I'm sure they're somewhere sitting in a very cushy place. It's more of a photo shoot. And look at the photographs which we are taken out. The soldiers are there, right there. So this is what China is doing. In our case, our systems and structures in India are different. We are, we have a military, and then we have other support structures. Like information war and all are not really, it's part of the military because the information war also comes under the Military Operations Directorate, and I was the DGMO, so I cannot say things otherwise. But we need national structures. We have the widest region, Doordarshan. We never made use of Doordarshan. We have the widest region, All India Radio. We never made use of All India Radio. So we need structure at national level. So that is where the integrated theater commands, when they come up, and when you look at integrated theater command, everything is, he's a uniformed person. He's only meant to fight wars and go and say Jai Hind and do something. No, he will be the one at the strategic level who will be interacting with other, resources of the union. Whether it is the I&B ministry, whether it's science and technology. Tomorrow, technology is going to play a very important role. It is no longer geopolitics, geoeconomics, and geostrategy. It is geotechnologies. Anyone who controls geotechnologies also controls the geopolitics and the geoeconomics. May not the geostrategy as yet, but anyone who controls geotechnologies controls everything. So he will be the one who will be looking at all these things today. If you look at the technology roadmap, the infrastructure, the technology information roadmap, which has been released, it talks 13 domains, and defense is not one of them. So that's what I'm trying to say. That integrated theater command not only meant for war fighting, they're meant for war prevention, deterrence. So when we talk of China, China has already changed the WTC commander 3 times. There is a 4th one right now. Okay, so we have created decision dilemmas in China also. So their commands are coming up. They're not fully operational as yet, and the transition period is there. And we also look at our own self, and this is not the right time with China at those steps. Well, if this is not the right time, I think they will know the time is right. So if we get the structures right in the Indian context, I think the time is not right. Time is long past. We should have done the integrated commands as of yesterday. And our prime minister said so on 15th August 2019, and the structures are in place. And I hope by 2020 we see at least 1 to 2 theatre commands already formed and functioning.
Thank you, sir. We have another question by Jundusha Patak, who is an associate professor at our center in RIU. She thanks you for this wonderful presentation, and she wants to know if you could throw some light on the border in the context of border conflict over territory in the north, in the eastern sector of LAC, and how these structures can really play a role in that.
Thank you very much, Professor. It is a question, a concern which comes to us on a daily basis, all of us. So we all good Indian citizens and we are responsible citizens. What China has done has disturbed the status quo. We had maintained peace and tranquility based on the 5 agreements of 1993, 1996, 2002, 2005, and 2013. The border is about 2013. But China disturbed that, and they disturbed it at a time when the world was going through the first COVID wave. And that is exactly what we have been looking at. We failed to discern China's strategic intent. As Sun Tzu says, amid chaos, there's an opportunity. Right? And that's the time you look at last year in March, April, especially 2020, not last year. India was exporting medicines to all nations, including the USA. We're the pharmacy of the world. And it is all India everywhere. And what we see is suddenly our focus, our resources, our attention being diverted from taking care of the COVID situation and looking after our aggression along the line of actual control. So what China did was to basically that's part of military coercion. It was not a war. And thankfully, it did not happen. But the military coercion to such an extent that it led to China doing a forward deployment along the line of actual control. And let me take a minute on the line of actual control. It's a misnomer. Line of actual control is not understood by most of the people. What is line of actual control? Line of actual control is an imaginary line. It is not one line. It is 4 lines. Right? You see it on the so many of the strategic experts who interpret your imagery. They give out your line of actual control. No, line of actual control is not known to anyone except for a few. Unfortunately or fortunately, I was one of the few, but I don't talk about it. So what is line of actual control? Line of actual control is a line of perceptions. Right? There's a perception, Indian perception line of actual control. There's a Chinese perception line of actual control. And there's an Indian perception of the Chinese perception line of actual control and a Chinese perception of the Indian perception line of actual control. Okay. So there's no common understanding. Please understand. If I've ever managed to confuse you, please understand the soldier who operates at 16, 17, 18,000 feet, what is the confusion in his mind? It's very difficult to understand that when you do not have it's not a defined line. I say this is my territory. He said this is his territory. We have standoffs. We have face-offs, and then we have very long face-offs. Like it happened in Dipsang, it happened in Chumar, it happened in Dolam, and it's happening right now. And it happened in Pangong, so they withdrew from Pangong Circle 1. They withdrew. It's still a few other places they got to go back. Status quo ante. So what does India do? India follows the principle of no blinking, no blink mention. Right? And it's a very good philosophy. No blinking, no blink mention. China respects strength, and we are strong on the ground. They came in. We went for what we call a mirror deployment, an equitable and a proportional deployment. Right. We surprised China, surprised with the strategic intent. After the 2019 Mahabalipuram, October Mahabalipuram strategic dialogue between the two leaders, and then COVID, it was not expected. Right? We failed to understand. Let's face facts. We failed to discern China's strategic intent, and it is the strategic intent not because of a road we had made in 2019. That road is coming out in 2000. That road was one of our major concerns, and had he wanted to stop that road from coming up with the DBSO road, he would have done it much earlier. And as a military man, I know that road. If he has to do it, there are better ways of doing it. Actually, he doesn't have to raise the costs for himself because China has to pay costs. So today we are standing firm, resolute at China. China didn't expect that, and we have raised the cost for China. So China has bitten more than it can chew. It cannot now go back so easily. We are 13 rounds out of the 14 rounds should be this month, hopefully. And we are in for negotiation. When you negotiate China, it's a game of patience. The talks continue 15, 16 hours. And in the end of the day, you get confused. उन्होंने बोला क्या है, उन्होंने करना क्या है, करेंगे क्या वो. It's very confusing. Because in our case, when I go for the talks, I know what exactly my mandate is, how much I can do and how much I cannot do. In the case of Chinese, it's a communist country. If it doesn't behave, tomorrow he'll go missing, right? So he's always looking over his shoulders. So when he talks, he goes back, and then he goes to his higher ups and says, "This is what he said. This is what I need to do," and then he gets directions. In our case, our mandate is laid down that you can do this much and no more. It has to be civil control. Military has to be under civil control. I have no doubts about it. Right. So when we talk to China today, we should continue talking to them, and it is through dialogue, military dialogue, political dialogue, diplomatic dialogue, that we should make sure that China goes back and we achieve status quo ante. Right? It's not going to be easy. It's going to be long term. So let not the public opinion be built as China would want it to be built. Our public opinion should not be driving our policies. In this particular instance, public opinion should drive policies, but not where especially where China is concerned, because that is exactly what China wants. It wants to weaken our political heads within the Indian public. It is part of political warfare which China does. And China thinks long. China looks at sharp power, whereas we only talk of soft power, we talk of hard power, and we also talk of smart power. China talks of sharp power. What's China's sharp power? If you're not with us, you're against us. If India was the only nation which not only not be part of this BRI, but oppose the BRI. Okay, China will not take it lightly. It will never take it. India is the nation today which is the balancing power. When the power shifts from the world power, emerging world power shifts from west to the east, it's India and China. And India is the only nation which is the balancing power. So China would like to pressurize us to make sure that we don't go with the US. We should look after interests. We should not look at what China gains, what US gains. We should look at what India gains, what Indians gain. What is there in for us? Right. So the LAC, I don't think, if you ask me, I don't think it will go into a war situation. Galwan was a good test round which China fired and lost. They did not expect such a response. I am a military man, I'm a soldier. China will never issue such things to only one unit. They will issue to many units, right? But our response, our retaliation with Colonel Santosh Babu and his men has deterred China from using those weapons and that thing not firing, abiding by the the rule book, the legal warfare, which says that we will not fire. Our 93 and 96 treaties say so, and it used some very ancient method of clubs and other things, and we gave it back to them. We suffered about 20. We suffered 20 fatalities. 20 made the supreme sacrifice. In China, the figure is around 45. Could be less, could be more, but doesn't matter. But because of Santosh Babu and his men, many more Galwans which are waiting to happen have not happened. And after June 20, if you see, there is no escalation whatsoever. There's no escalation. Okay. And fortunately or unfortunately, escalation has not taken place, which is a very good thing for us. We can keep saying they're here. They'll go back. If they don't go back, so what? Even when Sumdrongchu happened, it took 6.5 years to resolve it. After 6.5 years, they went back. We are toughened soldiers. We are a voluntary army. हम तो खड़े रहेंगे, बैठे रहेंगे वहाँ पर, हमें कोई problem नहीं है. Problem तो उसको है. 40% of his turnover every year. His conscripts do not go to technical units, so the Air Force, the Navy. His conscripts and frontline units. They're looking over their shoulders to go back to their families. Right. So this is my perspective on the LAC. We should not hurry it up, build capabilities, build infrastructure, and be firm out there. China respects them, give it back to them.
Thank you, sir. I'll just take this last question by Molly again. And he asks, there has been an active argument for that forming theater commands would demand large increase in expenditure with doubtful returns. What are your views in this statement, sir?
Yeah, that is what the arguments have been given by many experts, that will increase expenditure. I have a contrary view. I think it will not increase expenditures. It will only optimize our expenditures. When your headquarters and your decision-making group is shortened, your expenditure also goes down. In integrated theaters, your expenditure will go down, because I'm not talking of, most of us, that's when I said no relocation of resources. When you do not, the resources are there already, located where they're located. All we are doing is reallocation of resources. So there's no movement of troops, there's no movement of wherewithal, there's no movement of inventory hardware. And what you're going to do is, all your logistics, today you have three logistics, the naval logistics, the army logistics, and the air force logistics. Now when these get combined, and these will not only get combined, these will integrate into civil logistics. Right? Today, civil infrastructure is so good. Why do I need everything in my pocket and then start off? We have to integrate our civil infrastructure into the logistics. Right? I should be able to outsource. When I say, a small example, we keep a war wastage reserve, right? A war wastage reserve we keep. Why? Because we do not have the industry to ramp up their production in times of emergencies. If we were to do that, our war wastage reserve would not be required. Look at the money you spend to first acquire it, store it, and then turn it over, because it has a finite life. All your reserves have finite lives. A life cycle is there. It'll go bad. So we have to rotate it. So when you look at integrated theaters, there's so many things like training. The army is training, the air force is training, the navy is training, the training academies are different. We have certain joint academies, like we already have a Defense Service Staff College, we have the College of Defense Management, we have the National Defense College. These are tried and tested institutions, and these are by far all the three are the best institutions in the country today. I happen to be a product of all the three, fortunately. Right? So we are looking at optimizing resources. This is what exactly it is, the other way around. If you have integrated theater commands, you'll optimize resources, reduce your budget. Our budgets are going to get reduced. There's no doubt about it. And how do we optimize them is by integrating our resources. Instead of having 17 commands, having 17 different heads trying to spend the monies, you have 5 heads now. Plus 5 major heads and 5 other heads, 5 joint commands also. So look at the optimization resources, and you will save on your staff appointments. You save on the command appointments. So there's a lot of optimizing you do. And let me also know, before I end, let me give you a small example. I was the co-chair of the experts steering group with the Defense Corporation in the US. And I was in the Pacific Command in Hawaii. And they keep you very busy. So I said, give me a day off. I want to play some golf and all. They said, so why don't you play golf out here in 4th chapter? I said, fine. So we're playing golf. So the general who was playing with me, he said, General, the Navy got a wonderful course, a beautiful course. So I said, then why are you not playing out there? That course is not so good. So he said, no, but the Navy does not allow the Army to play. Okay. So next day I was with I was calling on the PECOM Navy, the naval commander, the 3-star out there. And he said, General, I believe you're an avid golfer. I said, no, I'm not an avid golfer. I just wanted to play a little golf. And he said, you should play at the naval course, very good. So I told him, I don't think you allow the Army to play. He said, no, that's the US Army, not the Indian Army. Okay. So even after all the joint and integration they have had, and all that, Goldwater Nicholas Act and what do you call it in 1986, they're still not integrated fully. So let's not, look at ourselves as, हम बेचारे हैं, हम ऐसा करते हैं, हम लड़ मरेंगे. क्यों लड़ मरेंगे भाई? हम एक ही माँ के बेटे हैं. So we will get the structures right. It will happen. We have to start, just pushing it through. And if we don't push it through, this is an opportunity we lose. It will never come back to us.
Thank you so much, sir, for that very enlightening presentation and a very insightful Q&A session. I would like to express my sincere apologies to to the people whose question have not been taken. I think due to the paucity of time, we will have to wrap up this session here. And I would just like to express the regards on behalf of our Director, Lieutenant General Assistant Mistry, sir. He could not join us for this webinar because he is involved in a meeting. So he sends his regard. And I would also like to thank the audience for joining in and keeping up this momentum and asking questions. And we also hope to host you all for our future Wednesday Expert Lecture series. And I would request you all to follow our social media pages to keep yourself updated with this information. So thank you, everyone, and special thanks to Sir for accepting our invite and coming to give us this enlightening talk. Sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much, Jai Hind. I wish you the very best, with happiness and success always. And my regards to the director. He's a fellow soldier and a
Yes.
colleague, Young Mystery. My regards to him. And wish you all the very best. Happiness and success always. Thank you very much, Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Aditya.